To now look at the effects of a permanent increase in price of oil in the ISLMPC model, where we're going to assume that inflation expectations are anchored to the central bank's target. So when plotting the Phillips curve, we're making the assumption that we have expected inflation is equal to pi bar, which is the central bank's target. So we have anchored inflation expectations. As in the text, we're going to assume the IS curve does not shift when price of oil changes. So let's look at and how will we graphically look at the effects of this permanent increase in our price of oil? Okay. So we're gonna start, right? So we're gonna start with the initial equilibrium. So initial equilibrium is going to be point A. We're gonna take that to be the initial equilibrium. We'll just fill that up in the diagram as well, where you have y is equal to yn. So we're going to start with medium and equilibrium, where output is at the natural or potential level, which means that inflation is equal to expected inflation, which in this case is just equal to pi bar. Medium and equilibrium, actual inflation is equal to expected inflation, but here expected inflation is just pi bar, right? Because we're assuming inflation expectations are anchored, right? So this is where this comes from. And third, real interest rate is equal to the natural rate of interest. Now let's fill this up in the diagram. So on the upper panel, we plot the ISLM model. We are on the vertical axis. So this is our IS curve. Now we want to plot our LM, right, which is going to be a horizontal line at the level of real interest rate chosen by the central bank. So we know we're starting off at point A, where real interest rate is equal to the natural rate of interest and output is equal to potential level. And the lower panel on the vertical axis, we will have pi minus pi bar and we'll have y, where we plot a Phillips curve. And remember, when plotting the Phillips curve, the x-intercept of the Phillips curve is at the point where output is equal to the natural level. We looked at this in detail. So this is PC, right? And this is this is yn and this is point A. And at this point, we can see this is 0, right? Okay, pi minus pi bar is equal to 0. So pi is equal to pi bar. So the whole idea is that we start at a point, right? So the whole idea is we start at a point where output is at, sorry, this I have to make better, right? Okay. So we start at this point, right? Where let's just look at this, right? Just a second. So this is supposed to be pi is equal to pi bar, right? So yeah, so the whole idea is this: we start at a point. We start in medium and equilibrium, right? Where output is at potential level, real interest rate is equal to the natural rate of interest, and inflation is equal to expected inflation, which in this case is just uh the target inflation, because we're assuming anchor inflation expectations. Now let's say price of oil increases, right? So price of oil increases, wait, let me just say thickness, right? So now the text models the increase in price of oil as an increase in markup of funds, right? So markup M increases. This is how the increase in price of oil is modeled in the text. As a result of this, we know in the WSPS model, PS shifts down, right? We know this from the WSPS model. We've done this in detail, so we're not going to look at this. So WSPS model, right? From the WSPS model, we know the price setting curve shifts down, right? Because its equation is 1 by 1 plus M. So when M increases, the real wage firms are willing to pay goes down. We've looked in this in detail. We looked this in detail how this causes natural rate of unemployment to go up. Now, when natural rate of unemployment goes up, natural level of employment goes down, right? And when natural level of employment goes down, natural level of output goes down, obviously, right? So from the WSPS model, we know UN increases. If UN is increasing, then this means if unemployment rate is increasing, so natural level of employment is going down, which means the potential level of output is going down. And we already looked at this. Okay, we talked about, what shifts IS curve, what shifts LM curve, what shifts Phillips curve. And we talked what shifts Phillips curve are changes in YN, right? We talked about this. Okay, what changes Phillips curve are changes in Yn, right? And changes in Yn come from the weight setting, price setting model, right? And that's why we're here, we're looking at the WSPS model. So when Yn decreases, this has been done in detail. We know, okay, the Phillips curve shifts to the shifts to the left corresponding to a lower Yn, right? So PS shifts left corresponding to a lower Yn, right? Because we know, okay, whenever we plot the Phillips curve, its horizontal intercept is always going to Yn, right? Smaller x-intercept, now when we plot Yn, smaller x-intercept, now when we plot Yn, now when we dot yn, right? So basically, what has happened is, let's say this is the new x-intercept, yn prime. So the Phillips curve has, let's say, shifted. Let's make the new Phillips curve. So remember, whenever yn changes, the Phillips curve shifts, right? Because the yn is its horizontal x-intercept, so you can think about its changes in that. So this is PC prime. Right. So the Phillips curve has shifted towards the left, right? So the change increase in the price of oil is modeled as an increase in markup, which will reduce YN and thus will cause the Phillips curve to shift towards the left, right? This is now new lower potential level of output, right? So this is the new lower potential level of output. New lower potential level of output, right? So this is this, right? This much we understand, right? Now let's look at, okay, we looked at, we started off with medium and equilibrium, then we looked at what curve shifts because of the change in price of oil. Now let's look at the short-term effects of this, right? So let's understand the short-term effects now. Let me just delete this. Just a second. Okay, so let's look at the short-term equilibrium now after the change in price of oil. Okay. So let's look at short-term equilibrium now. Now short-term equilibrium is still point A prime, right? With now what is point A prime? Now what is short-term equilibrium? We know short-term equilibrium will occur at intersection. We know short-term equilibrium in ISL and PC models occurs at intersection of IS and LM curve, right? So it's at intersection of unchanged IS and unchanged LM, right? Unchanged LM. Because see, why is it unchanged IS? We're assuming that IS does not shift. This is important. We are assuming, as in the text, assume IS does not shift. So we're assuming IS does not shift over here, right? So the medium and equilibrium, the short-term equilibrium is the same point, right? It's still point A prime, but we will see there will be a difference, right? So it's the same point, right? So, because remember, in the ISLM model, ISLM PC model, short-term equilibrium occurs at the intersection of IS and LM curve. The IS and LM curve has not changed, so the point is the same, but we're going to see there's going to be a difference, right? So we have the same level of output as we had initially. The level of output is the same level of output we had initially, right? So the level of output is same. So same level of output we had initially. But now the difference, right? But there is a difference. But now this level of output is higher than the new potential level of output than the new potential level. Initially, this level of output is equal to the potential level of output, but now it's higher than the new potential level of output because we know the natural level of output is countdown. Initially, when we were at point A, output was yn and this was the potential level of output. We're still at point A, right? Which is point A prime, right? But now the difference is this output level is lower than the new is higher than the new lower potential level of output, right? So we have a positive output gap now, right? We have a positive output gap here, right? So now this is the new, this was the new level of output, but this is the potential level of output. So we have a positive output gap here, right? So we have a positive output gap, right? So we have a positive output gap now, right? So we have a positive output gap now. Earlier the output gap was 0. And because output is above the potential level, we know from the Phillips curve, whenever output exceeds the potential level, what happens is pi is greater than pi bar, right? There's an increase in inflation above target, right? Initially, at point A, inflation was a target. Now we have increase in inflation above target, and we've already discussed this in detail when we were looking at the Phillips curve. When output is above the potential level, that causes inflation to exceed the target because when output is above potential, unemployment is below the natural rate, output suppression, wages and prices, inflation increases. We can see okay, this was A, right? But now at the same level of output, while that we initially had, we're on the new Phillips curve, right? Because the Phillips curve has shifted towards the left, it has shifted up, right? So now we're at point A prime. Okay, so we're no longer at this point A because the Phillips curve has shifted. So at this level of output, we're now at A prime. And over here, we can notice that pi minus pi bar is greater than 0. So pi is greater than pi bar, right? So we can see. So in the short run, what we can see is, Okay, what has happened over here is that when the Phillips curve shifted, in the short run, we're still at the same level of output as before, but now we don't have a zero output gap at this level of output. We have a positive output gap now because our potential level of output has gone down. And because now we have output exceeding the new lower potential level of output, so as a result of this, we know inflation exceeds the target level. So whenever you're considering the short-run effects of changes in UN or YN, think of the relative positioning of your current U or Y, which is this, right? This is the current Y relative to the new potential level of output, right? So this is the short-run effects. Now let's look at how do we go from short-run to medium and equilibrium. So let me just erase all of this and then we can look at the adjustment process quickly. Right, so let's just erase all of this. Hmm. So let's make it a little neater, just a second. Right, so just a second. Okay, so this was the new lower potential level of output, and this is the output gap, right? Okay. So now we know कि at A prime, like we discussed, कि at A prime, right? We know कि Y is greater than Y prime N, where Y prime is the new low potential level of output, leading to higher inflation than target, right? Leading to higher inflation than target. So at A prime, output is above the new, leading to higher inflation than target. Y greater than Y bar. We know this from the Phillips curve. So now what the central bank will do is the central bank increases R, shifting the LM curve upwards. So the central bank, as a result of this, is going to increase R, shifting LM curve upwards until Y decreases. So central bank is going to do this until Y decreases to Y N prime, right? So this is what the central bank is going to do is it's going to basically right, what it's going to do is it's essentially going to increase the real interest rate until output is again equal to the now equal to the new lower potential. Okay, so this is not, I'll have to change the figure a bit to make this look better. Sorry about that. Right, let me just make it like this. Sorry about this. Right, so yeah, okay, this was a little bit messy, but we can do this like this, right? So basically, what the central bank wants to do is it wants to increase R, shifting the LM curve upwards until output decreases to the new lower potential level of output, because only then inflation will be equal to target when you add the new lower potential level of output, right? So it basically wants to increase R such that the new LM curve intersects the IS curve at the new lower potential level of output. So this is LM prime and this is RN prime, right? This was the original LM. As a result of this, we can see there'll be a movement up our IS curve, because when the central bank increases R, we know that reduces investment, which reduces demand, that reduces output, right? So movement up the IS curve. So this will result in a movement up the IS curve, movement up the IS curve, right? Right, and as Y decreases to YN prime, and hence pi decreases back to pi bar, right? It's going to be so we're going to move to point A double prime. So what is going to happen is y decreases to yn prime, right? Inflation is going to go back to, we were at this point A prime, and then we're going to move over here A double prime. So this is A double prime, right? Okay, as output goes down to the new low potential level of output, inflation is going to go um, down back to target, right? So this is going to be a movement down the new PC, right? Movement down new PC. And here, keep in mind, if the central bank had not reacted, and would have let inflation deviate from target, inflation expectations would have de-anchored, right? So we want to wrap this up now. So let's just analyze the new medium run equilibrium. So we know, okay, because output is exceeding the new low potential level of output, as a result of this, what is going to happen is inflation is above target, and as a result, the central bank is going to react. Because if the central, just keep in mind, if the central bank does not react, and let inflation, and this is something to keep in mind, and let inflation deviate from target, for too long, inflation expectations will de-anchor, right? And we know wage setters will start expecting higher inflation, and inflation will keep on rising, right? Inflation expectations will de-anchor. So to protect its target, the central bank will react, increase real interest rate, and when it does that, the LM curve will shift upwards. And it will keep on doing that until output reduces to the new lower potential level of output, and as a result, inflation would come back to target. So now the idea is that because it's basically the central bank which will help us to go from short term to medium and equilibrium in this particular model, right? So let's analyze lastly the new medium and equilibrium. So in new medium run equilibrium, now at point A double prime, one thing that we have is output is equal to yn prime, which is less than yn. Yn was the original potential and natural level of output. Original potential output, right? So this was the original potential output, right? So we have permanently lower level of output because of decreased potential output, right? Permanently. So in this case, we have a permanently lower level of output. So permanently lower level of output because of decrease in potential output, right? Because potential output has gone down. So in the medium run, we end up with a permanently lower level of output. And this is again because we assumed permanent increase in price of oil, right? It was a permanent increase. So we end up with a permanently lower level of potential output, right? So it was a permanent increase. So that's why we have permanently lower level of output, right? So that is why you end up with a permanently lower level of output, right? Okay, so moving back. So that's the first thing. Okay, we have a permanently lower level of output. Okay, sorry, let me just correct this too. And the second thing is, okay, we know inflation is back at target, which was the goal to prevent inflation expectations from de-anchoring. Now R prime n is greater than R prime n is greater than Rn. Real rate now needed to maintain output at potential is higher, right? Real rate now needed to maintain output at potential is higher. Output as potential is higher now, right? Because the way we went from the short run equilibrium A prime to the medium run equilibrium A double prime was through this increase in R, right, which helps to reduce investment demand that causes output to go down, and as output goes down, moving up the IS curve, and this decrease in output to the new lower potential level of output would help to basically reduce inflation back to target, which is a movement down at PC, like we can see over here. So just to summarize, over here our diagram, we can see in this diagram here, the initial equilibrium was at point A, where we started off with medium run equilibrium, right? The new short-run equilibrium after increase in oil price is A prime, right? When we still had the same, because remember short-run equilibrium occurs at intersection of IS and LM. IS and LM did not change over here. Again, we're assuming IS does not shift. As in the text, right? So in the short-run equilibrium, we had the same level of output, but now it's not equal to the potential level of output, but it's lower than the new, but it's higher than the new lower potential level of output. So we had a positive output gap, which meant that inflation was above target, because now at this level of output, you're not at A, you're at A prime on the new Phillips curve, right? And then we had new medium run equilibrium, which was A double prime, where output was now equal to the new lower potential level of output, and hence inflation came back to target. And this was done through the central bank increasing R.